Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a sample library called Density by Mammoth Audio. They do a lot of trailer music, that's sort of their bread and butter, and they came together and made a freaking huge sample library for Kontakt. They also provide you with the samples themselves, which with this particular library is a really good thing to have. Let's go ahead and take a quick listen, and then let's review this thing, shall we? All right, so this is Density. Before we talk about it, this is what it looks like, and let's give it a listen. I have here a track, made it pretty much completely on the live stream the other day, and was just sort of getting a feel for it, and I was actually really happy with how easy it was to work with. And let's just give it a quick listen. There's a little bit of mixing, but for the most part, it's all just raw density. All of these samples that you're seeing are all density. They're like one hits and transitions and things like that. And then you're going to hear some instruments, also all density. In fact, I think there's only one thing that actually isn't density. Oh no, there's two. There's a guitar or a bass, I'm sorry. And there's also a loop library that I used a little bit of. And then everything else is density. So let's just go ahead, let's hear that. This summer, 2020, June, be there. I don't know. So there you go. Made it's trailer music. They have some horror stuff. They've got some sci-fi themed stuff. And then they've got a lot of just big, bombastic trailer themed stuff. So let's go ahead and take through some listens. And I'll give you some thoughts on usability that you can do with it. And also just a couple tips and tricks. Probably the one I learned the most is, since their browser is inside the instrument itself, the names don't update. And as you do more and more of these, I highly recommend changing the name. So I changed this one to tuba, might change this one to cello, and it's going to make your life easier. But I'm going to open up a blank one here, and let's just see how quick it loads real quick. Super fast, so that's really nice when that happens. And you've got two channels, channel 1 and channel 2. They're pretty much the same. You're able to like apply effects to them independently. And they've got these two super nice looking big fancy effects, which I utilized on the cellos at the end. We'll take a look at that when the time comes. But let's just hear some of these things. So we're just going to start with booms. There's a bunch, and some of the things in here are freaking amazing. Just as a quick tease. They have like throat mantras and throat singings in this library. I don't know why, I just thought that was awesome. So if you want some epic throat singing, you now know the library to go to. But let's go ahead and start with booms, and these are the impact sounds. Then we'll work our way through. I'm going to change the MIDI channel to Omni for reasons. And now when I play some notes. So sub impacts are important because they're really easy to layer with, and they add a ton of impact to like just those big moments where like a conclusion or something happens. This is subs 2, and we're looking at channel 2. They are color coordinated. Yeah, that kind of stuff, super incredibly useful. So there's that. Now we have a couple things. We have a browser that lets us just browse through the subfolder that we've selected, which is pretty cool. Panning, pitch shifting, volume, and then enable, disable, all pretty straightforward. The things that I was really excited about were the reverse. So if I click reverse, it'll play it backwards. There we go. Very, very nice. I do not know why this is not like a feature in every library. So cool to have an option like that, or like a patch that features them. We also have ADSR. We're going to look at the ADSR a bit later. Another one that I'm like, why don't libraries have this on more of their things? Adds a lot of usability. And then, yeah, you're able to come in and edit the effects on your channel. Channel 1, master, channel 2. And those are connected to the contact effects. So if you want to use the contact effects, you can. So those are subs. Let's look at the tonal subs. Now these are going to be really low, so hopefully you're listening over something that supports sub frequencies. Tasty, right? All right, let's move over to the Brahms. These are like kind of long, big stabs. I'm using a couple of them in this track. I have one here and another one here. Or I believe that's a downer. I can't remember. And then here's there's one. So I believe these were downers and these two were the Brahms. This guy, this guy, this guy. So let's dig through some more of those. So we have dark, dark 2. Very cool. Organic. I love these. Like, you just hear the saw wave. Or like, I don't know. That sounds like a didgeridoo mixed with a possibly some voice, or I don't even know. Like the distortions on these, I think it's kind of difficult sometimes to get the distortion to match in that cinematic way. And so it's really nice to just have samples that already have it sort of cooked in. Yep, very, very useful, especially for those big open moments. Let's go for benders. Oh, benders. Now these are also just I just want to give you a vibe for what's going on, because some of these samples are pretty long. Benders, experimental. Experimental 2. Brahms hits. That's so awesome. And then we have a full hit. These are really, really cool for transitions. So you may have noticed that I am not using the density for these things. I actually went and grabbed the actual samples. It's just easier to work with them. If you're going to reverse it, it's easier to reverse it here because a lot of times the timing is difficult to get. And here you can just slide things around as needed. Like, for example, this thing, the impact's right around here. But to write a MIDI note, to get it to line up, it takes forever. It's a lot trickier. So working with audio is just a lot more straightforward. And these samples, if you go to the file, the folder that has your instrument in it, there's one labeled samples. It is not that folder. This folder has the compressed versions for contact, so that contact can work really well. But what you want to go to is we want to go to the density wave. And in here you have all the wave samples. So you're going to want to go to this folder. It's got all your waves, which I have just over here. So these are like the downers. And so a great file system as well. So I worked a lot this way and this way, just because of the nature of these sounds that we have here. Now we've got downers. Let's just go through here on the downers. There are things that go down. Yeah, very cool. I have the downer, so I'm using one here, like we saw earlier. So pretty cool, layered it up with some hits. Those are downers. We looked at Brahms. We've got drones. I didn't use any drones in this particular track. But if you're going for that ambience, you can get some of those here. Yeah, so we've got some nice drones. We have another set of those drones too. I do find it interesting they separated the drones 1 and 2 out. I don't know if there's a reason for that, because I feel like they could just put those on the keys and have one drones. Maybe they're made with different ideals in mind. I don't know. We're going to go to hits. So this is like one of the big parts of the library, all the hits. Let's actually go to hits and here. Hits, and we'll start with experimental. Horror. Organic. So they give you, what I really like is the categories, and I think they're actually really intuitive the way they named them and what the samples are. And you could pretty much find any kind of hit that you want in here. So these are our layers, and then we have our sci-fi. Just picture a giant tentacle machine thing just ripping through the floor of your submarine or whatever. This thing comes in and you go, oh crap. And then it's like robot eye appears. And you're like, oh, this is, one of those. And then finally we have trailer. Now I probably spent the most time in this category. This plus the subs works for a huge majority of things. But yeah, those are the hits. And then we have reverse effects. Now, of course, I could just drag these in, reverse any of them, and manipulate them however I want. But they also include some that were deliberately reversed. And then I'm going through, so these are soft reversed. Yep, very cool. I made a reversal library myself, so it's kind of cool to see some other takes on it. One thing about doing reverse effects is they take so long to audition. These are tonal. We also have our risers. Some of these are extremely long. So FL won't even audition some of them, but just to give you, there's one of them. They're so long. You are probably going to need to. I highly recommend working with the audio with these, because you're going to want to fade them in, fade them out. And when they peak, you're going to want to treat the volume different depending on context. So here's, I guess, this is going on underneath everything. And then I've got a volume envelope to sort of rein it in underneath other stuff. Probably do some EQing in context too. Yeah, and then the transition there. But it keeps going. Let me show you. Keeps going for a while longer. So I didn't want to wait that long. It didn't really fit what I was doing. So yeah, those are your risers. After the risers, we've got trailer risers, just different themes. This one was a trailer example. Wow, that one was stressful. And then we've got some transitions. The transitions in stutters are pretty interesting. Stutters are pretty specific to if you're doing like something with a lot of robots or something. So that could be a good fit. Not one I'm probably going to touch too much, but it's cool to have them. And then we also have these transitions. And I messed around quite a bit with these. I thought a number of these were really cool. So these are just elements that are meant to help push you to another thing without necessarily being these massive, massive transitions like the ones we've been hearing. So things you can layer in. I think I clicked on that one. It's the hits. That's nice. Metal. If you're making something with horror, you're going to use this a lot. And then we have organic. That would be another good horror one. These are all pretty scary. They went for a darker sound with the library. That was a big thing for them, was to make a darker sounding library. Oh, and then we have the throat singing. It is so freaking awesome. All right, so to show you some of the, let's take a look at that. So they have this playable side. They have loops and they have instruments. We're going to take a look at the instruments first. So first we have cello. And the cello, you've already heard the cello. The cello is really amazing just because of the velocity levels. If you push really hard, you get like that really abrasive sound versus... This is not the best keyboard to demonstrate it. So on and so forth. We have spiccato. Just gonna go through all these real quick. Not all of them have the same level of velocity dynamic layers. So for example, this one has like a soft and a loud. There's not necessarily a lot in the middle though, versus like the staccato. There was a bit more resolution there. bend. That's actually what you're hearing when we do the bends here. That is what's doing it. So they sound amazing in context. Like, holy crap, were those cool. Also, signature bends. Harmonic longs. Could be really pretty or terrifying. It totally depends. Harmonic slides. And some risers. We also have a tuba, and the tuba is just as incredible. A lot of similar things, a couple new things. Flutter tongue on a tuba. There's some really, really cool textures in here. Like, they're very context specific. So if you're working on doing a lot of like sort of big, crazy, like just epic things, a lot of these things you could start as your starting idea and build around it. And then we also have the throat singers, which is a perfect example of what I was just saying. Could you imagine someone coming up and being like, I hum as a hobby, and then they do that? Nothing there. It ends there. And we've got some, let's look at gravels. And then there's a bunch of loops. Now I've tried to figure out what the numbers mean. I'm sure it's somewhere in some video, and I was just sort of skipping around trying to find it, but I just couldn't locate it. But what I can tell you is the numbers are not tempos. So if you click on it and you play them, these are, by the way, extremely raw sounds, very cool. But for example, if I speed this up, it still syncs with the DAWs. So my guess is that they are recorded and time stretched differently, because the rhythms that you have as an option are also different. So for example, that was cellos 80. If I go to cellos 100, much tighter sound. If we go all the way, let's go to the top here. Cellos 140. And you also see the rhythms are very different. So I don't want to go obviously through all these. There's a ton, but let's just get a quick vibe for them. Let's start with the clocks. The clocks are extremely cool. So we have clocks 120 and clocks 180. And then each one of these is basically just different clocks. We have clocks 180. feel like I'm gonna fight an orc or something. The mantras, gotta love the mantras. Cello rhythms. And we've got guitar. One thing I wish that they would also implement, if you're watching this, is a button that will make it so that they will come in time. You could do this by just having one play event trigger all the samples and then it just read from there. That would be very efficient though. But there are ways of doing it where when I play a note, they share the same note information so that when I press the second note to come in, it comes in perfectly in time. Because if I do something like push one slightly after, you get that, which that could be really useful too if you're going for like a cluster kind of an effect, but it'd be really nice if they just had a button here that would make them share the same event so that they would trigger the same. And it's not an issue when you're writing with them because you can line the note events up perfectly every time anyways, but it would be pretty cool. And we've got a sousaphone. So we get some pretty stressful events going on. Tuba, and that's that. Now, as you go up, I will say the sounds, especially in the 120 range, seem to be a lot more crisp than the other ranges. So you may want to experiment with those first and then dig around because maybe you want something a little more gritty. I find that the 80s tend to have that. Again, I'm not entirely sure what the numbers mean, but that's what I've learned from using it. We also have, let's check out the ADSR and let me show you a couple sort of tips and tricks. So cello, we're just going to go on spiccato or staccato, I mean. We can turn the ADSR on so we can chop off just the beginning. Get a more rounded out sound. Very cool. So you can use this to sort of rein the library in a bit. So I just wanted to show you ADSR, very cool. And one thing that I did in this was I used the distortion. So you basically have a sample rate reducer / bit rate reduction thingy over here. And we also have a distortion. So you can get something super aggressive out of here. And they made these the big two things because these are the, in my opinion, with a library like this, the things you're going to want to grab. And I do that in the track actually. I am using that here on the cellos. Let me just show you. So this is the automation for it. I'll show you how to set up an automation for this because Contact's a bit of a tricky thing to automate sometimes, but let's just hear it. Yeah, so they come up, and I honestly could probably mix them up a bit more, but that's what's going on there. So very cool. The distortion can definitely add an element of transitional effect. To set it up to learn MIDI CC automation, you got to make sure that you share the same MIDI channel. So I'm going to set this to MIDI channel 1 to keep it simple. And then I'm going to come in, and this is also transmitting over MIDI channel 1. And let's say I want to use the breath controller to do this. So all you got to do is you got to hit learn MIDI CC automation. You just right click on it. This is the really easy way. And then when you move it, boom, it is connected. If it doesn't show that, but you think it's still automatable, you could always check by coming up here to the automation tab. And we could see where all the continuous controllers are linked up. So if right clicking for whatever reason isn't doing it for you, or you just want to see what all the automatable things are, you can come in here and check it out. So that's that. If you have any questions about this, let me know. What do you think of the library? If you make something cool with it, drop it in the comments and have a blessed day.